You're listening to Inclusive AF with Jackye Clayton and Katie Van Horn.
Good morning, Jackye.
I have a question, Katie.
Let's hear it.
When they say recording in progress, does that mean it was recording before you hit record? Or does that mean...
You'll never know. I have recordings of you that, if they go public. Just kidding.
One day we'll do a full episode of outtakes, and I'm Jackye Clayton. Welcome
to the Inclusive AF podcast.
And my kitchen.
In my kitchen. No, I'm in my office. Jackye, I did get a request from someone. We need to post some pictures of the puppies. I know your puppy's at the groomers right now. So we will post some pictures of Penelope and Scooby-Doo. Scooby.
Yes. Hey, Scoob.
Hey, Scoob. So I have shortened her name to Pen. That seems to be the Penny,
Penelope, Penny, Pen.
Pen, yeah.
Pretty
She's going to come running in here any minute now because I'm saying her name.
Yep.
And I started giving her these bully sticks that I don't know if you've heard of them, but they are like, they're cow intestine, I believe, or something from an animal, but it's all natural. And so it's okay for them to have them. Cause I've always been one of those people that don't like the raw hides and stuff like that. Cause that chips in their tummy and can hurt them.
Yeah.
This is not that. It turns into like a nasty thing that they love and adore. And she's hiding hers right now, I believe, somewhere, which is always great.
Well, additional side note, we have determined that Scooby is part Chihuahua, part Pit Bull.
Oh, okay.
The most fun of all facts is that when we came home from New York last weekend, she flew. We didn't know she could fly. We have those play areas that is, gated off, and she jumped out the top of it, past the chair, and then jumped from the ground to give me a kiss. Now, when you see the pictures, this will all become so much more clear on why this is a disaster.
Isn't that dog like pounds. 2 inches tall?
She's like literally a Polly Pocket. I think we can't. Awesome. We hope that she just is so small she caught air and just flew, but we have.
So she's also part bat.
Part bat, yes. Okay. I will let you know after we get the DNA test of what she
all
is exactly.
The real, yeah.
Yes.
And luckily, if she is a bat, she did get rabies shots, so we're all set there
so
too.
We're good.
So it's all coming together. It's all coming together. Little Miss Penelope has not had her rabies shot yet because she's still too little.
Yes,
that's on her next round. She gets that, I guess. So that's
the dog update
for all the listeners that care about the dogs.
Yes.
I'm sure you all do because they're adorable. All right. So today we're going to talk about something that I think is near and dear and important to all of us. And that is getting paid. And so do you want to start the story off or how do you want to do this, Jack?
Well, I think we should talk 50 years ago sometime. There's always been a lot of articles coming out about, should you get paid? Should you do free events? How much should you get paid? And I was speaking to a friend who's very well known on the circuit, has been speaking and doing events for about a year, I want to say, who finally said, I need to start charging for my work when I'm going and doing these things. And they asked me how they should charge. And so when I gave them the rate of what they should charge, they were a little bit surprised, but I think it's important for people to realize what goes into these requests when you're asked to do various things and kind of where we stand and who you should be paying and how you kind of determine those rates. And some of this is going to be more scientific than not. And some of this is going to sound like funny math, but I think if you work with us. Now, Katie is a famous international diversity speaking star. So you have some opportunities that you've had that you can discuss about that too.
I could joke around and say, I've been on the road with Pitbull and Snoop Dogg when they've been, yeah, when I worked at my prior employer, I did get to see it. So I am Mrs. Worldwide, similar to Pitbull being Mr. Worldwide,
That's
something
right.
like that. No,
Similar.
not really. It's almost the same thing, almost the same. So here's the thing. I think the biggest piece for me, and you and I talked about this before we started recording, is the key word here is expertise.
That's right.
And I think that there is a myth or I don't even know what the right word is, that people should be paid to come and speak. And I don't disagree with that if they are being paid for their expertise. Having someone come on a panel, come on a whatever it might be, great. But when you're asking them to share their expertise or share something that they know that other folks don't know, that's, I think, the tipping point for me, because I think we have seen a rise in folks that maybe aren't experts, but just are loud.
Yeah.
And they are getting paid, and hey, God bless if that's what they can do and they could pull that off. But if you want expertise, that's, I think, the point of, that's the tipping point for me of when you should get paid. And I think every person can have expertise in some area. So it's not like you have to have X amount of years, or you have to have X amount of whatever. It's more a matter of what are you an expert in that you should be speaking on, and what are things that you should not be speaking on.
Now, I will tell you,
that's
many years ago when I got started, I used to teach a class on how to be an expert in 3 months. And this was right at the beginning of the internet, right? And so what happened, I used to teach a leadership class. And so I used to speak about speaking, and I used to do extemporaneous speaking. And that was like my whole gig. So that was really cool, because you got paid and they gave you a topic and you didn't have to prepare because it was extemporaneous speaking. And then you had to talk about how you created those speaking points. But what was interesting is there was a gentleman who used to take every speaking gig that he got, and he had a flat rate. And someone asked him to talk about corporate social responsibility in Grenada, right? He said, sure, and didn't know anything about what corporate social responsibility was, lived in Miami, knew nothing about Grenada, wasn't sure why he was being asked to do it. And so he called me and said, hey, I've got to do this gig about corporate social responsibility. I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, I don't know anything about it either. We literally went to the library, because this is the very beginning. This is during Ask Jeeves and Alta Vista on the internet, if you're old enough to remember that. And we started writing about it. So the thing was, he was an attorney, and he noticed that a lot of people that were getting speaking engagements there were all published. And so the thought was, oh, I just need to get published. So he started writing articles about corporate social responsibility because he was doing his research on how to find out about it. Started posting, got published. By the time he went to Grenada, he was on the news, because he's the leading expert of corporate social responsibility in Grenada. And part of that is how they got published. Now, I say that to say today, people say, who should I ask for a speaking event? And they'll type in the topic and names pop up. Now, the algorithm works a little bit differently than it did then. Literally then, it only pulled up people that had corporate social responsibility in Grenada. Now there's a lot of inferences and guesses that the algorithm makes. And so since they see a name attached to a topic over and over and over again, it's this assumption that that's the article that you want. Even if it's somebody's just tweeting out and they've never written an article or spoken about it ever in their life, it's not on their LinkedIn profile, they haven't written any books. And these people are getting selected to be the experts in getting a platform for something that they don't know anything about. And so I think that's where it gets a little bit confusing on how people are getting speakers and how they're making their choices for speakers at events. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take it one step further, because we are HR folks, and one of the phenomenons that I think both of us have noticed over the years is that we go to these conferences and every speaker is a male in HR. And if you look at the actual, a white male, yes, a white male in HR. And if you look at the actual demographics of HR, that's a mystery to all of us, how every male is a speaker and no females are, even when the population of HR, I don't know what it is anymore, but I know at one point it was like 90% female or something ridiculous like that, which is not okay either. But the point of the story is like, how are all of these white males getting selected as speakers? And it was because they were the loudest for whatever reason. And so I think the piece that, starting with the expertise, I think you're spot on. It's now we do have the internet where you can Google names, you can Google people who are in your network. You can look at LinkedIn, see whose names pop up when you do a search, things along those lines. But there's also the, word of mouth. And I think we all have our connections that we can say, who is the speaker on diversity and talent acquisition? Oh, well, Jackie's the one that you should reach out to. And I think it's getting better, but I think there still are the folks that maybe aren't experts or haven't done the job or haven't actually done the work to say, how do I become an expert in this? Like the example you gave about the gentleman, going to speak on corporate social responsibility in Grenada, like he did his work. He did the work to figure out how to actually become an expert. And I'm not saying you need to have 100 years of experience doing the work. It's more just have you done your research? If you can speak to something and actually like do the research on it of what actually works and what doesn't work, that's just a great place to start.
But you should also ask references. I mean, I don't think it's difficult to ask. When you say, can you speak? And they say, yes. Okay. Can you give me some references? Do you have videos that you can show me to? Do you have, what is your, who can vouch for you? Who do you have that can vouch for you in this area?
Yes. Because I think, I'm so glad you just said that, because I think that's the other piece is, how many people have we seen? And this is so cringy when it happens, but when you see folks go up on stage and you're like, oh, they're not prepared, or, oh, well, they aren't an expert at this. And so it's uncomfortable for everyone. You're not getting any value from it, and everyone is just uncomfortable. And here's the thing. When I first started doing public speaking, I can only imagine what the response was from the folks that were in the audience. And to those people, let me just apologize now. I love all of you. You'll get a refund at some point. No, I'm just kidding. But even like, I didn't start speaking about HR until I was probably 10 years into my career.
Right.
And that's because at that point I felt like I have something to say. I have an expertise in some of these topics. And that's actually how I met our friend Robin Schooling, is through one of my first speaking engagements. And I think that's the piece that is sometimes missing, is having the experience, having that expertise to be able to have something to say that people need to hear. So that's one piece. And that's the one piece of like, should you get paid for it or not? There are other times though, that you're trying to build that exposure and build that presence, where it's more of, and this is where kind of the panel piece comes into play in my mind, is you might be able to answer some questions on a topic. And for panels, I normally don't charge unless it's something that like, I need to be the expert at X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, when I am hiring for a panel, I absolutely want the people that are on that panel to be paid. And I'm not saying millions of dollars, but at least to have some sort of stipend to say, thank you for coming and taking that time.
Yes. Now, you're very, very good about that. You've always been thoughtful, and an ally in that space. Like Katie will be like, oh, you're getting paid for that.
Right. I've
negotiated on your behalf.
Well, I know for reals. Like I have literally written that into SOWs with clients when I know I'm going to have to bring people in to speak or to do different activities, because it's important. If you're asking folks, and here's where it goes to kind of that next level. Even when you're on a panel, you don't show up that day and speak on the panel and it's the end. You have preparation that you do, whether that's prep calls, questions that they send you to reflect on, whatever it might be. So there's preparation time. And that might be an hour to, 4 or 5 hours that you're preparing for that panel. And for me, it's more of I don't want to look like a jackass. So I'm definitely going to prepare for whatever that topic is. So I come across as knowledgeable and I know, I'm not up there floundering with the peer set that I'm with on that panel.
I'll tell you when I started charging. It was a turning point. I will tell you at the beginning, and sometimes still, I didn't charge because of like locally in Waco. And if it's something that I've already done before, it's something that I can just refresh. A lot of times it's going to be a benefit, or if I want to practice new material with a local organization, I'll do that locally for free, and I'm offering it up. Would you like for me to do this? Because I'm practicing new material and seeing, especially since my environment is really conservative where I live, so it makes it better for me. That's a lesson learned, but I did it for free at the beginning because I had to have that video and I had to get those references in order to be able to charge the dollars. But I started charging the dollars when I had to, at the beginning, they gave me free conference access and T&E. And in order to do that, I had to drive 2 hours on my own in order to get to the airport. That at this point, I didn't think about charging. And when I got there, everything was running late. So then my session was running late. I almost got killed trying to go back to the airport and almost missed my daughter's birthday. And I'm like, I wasn't gonna have enough money to pay for therapy to explain why mom missed her birthday. And I was going to need that money. And I was like, wait a minute. The fact that I almost died, like I had a panic attack and that I'm going to have to double up on my prescriptions for high blood pressure was not factored into the speaking engagement. And I don't think people realize how much they sacrifice. And now it's because we have an obligation to our clients and the organizations that we serve, now that we're going to be able to give them full attention and that we're giving them that service. And we can't just give it. I mean, why would we be in business if we gave these things away for free? And how can you guarantee? And I also think you have to realize that if you're not paying, you really do get what you pay for. When I know that I'm getting paid and it's negotiated, then I know that there's a certain expectation that they have at the end of my session. And it's kind of like when people say, can I pick your brain? I'm like, you don't want to pick my brain. It's really ugly in there. You really don't, if it's just
ugly,
me and
it's
you.
messy.
It's messy. That's right. Messy. But if I know that we're trying to get to a point or we have a goal, then what I share with you is different in making sure that I can meet. Otherwise, I'm just giving you my opinion. Right. And I think that happens too.
I want to break down what you just said, because I think there's a couple things in there that people need to take into consideration. For me, payment can be like you said, a conference, a participant badge, or, be, the ability to go to the other sessions. Cause I think even that can be huge for the networking, for the time that you get to spend with other folks in the industry, all of those things. And so that to me, especially if you have a conference that is a well-known conference or a conference where, folks that you want to network with will be in attendance. And I think, there's a lot of different ones that we could call out right now that, I have had the pleasure of speaking at, or that you've had the pleasure of speaking at, that it's like, this was really cool that we're able to, not just from I wanted to speak here to get that visibility, but also, I got to network, I got a free ticket, I got, travel was paid for, blah, 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 which I think is important as well. And what I normally do is when you're talking about that, it's also not just what you can give the organizer in the time that you'll be on stage and the time that you're preparing to be on stage. To your point, it's not just my opinion. I'm giving you data. I'm giving you facts. I've
done the research, the latest, the greatest things that are going on current.
But then that's also where the kind of that influencer badge or, whatever we want to call it comes into play too, that if I'm also at that in attendance at that conference or whatever it might be, I'm also going to tweet. I'm also going to use my social media platforms engage with folks that might be at the conference as well, or to broadcast what a great conference it is. And I think for conference organizers, a lot of them have gotten really smart about that and said, hey, we want you to write a blog post, or we want you to, tweet for the 15 days leading up to and during the event, or whatever it might be. And there's some good stuff that a couple different organizations have done that I think is really smart. Because I
But
think that's
we've
part of
gotten
it
smarter
too.
too. It is part of it. And I think we as speakers and influencers, air quotes, eye roll, insert eye roll here, have gotten really smart where it's like, hey, network, I need y'all to tweet this out. Right.
Yeah.
And I think we are connected and have networked because of the opportunities we got where we know we can boost a single event.
Mm-hmm.
That's helpful for our session, but it's helpful for everyone because you're also, as a speaker, getting that feedback. You're getting real feedback back to you that you can utilize in future endeavors. And I think it's fair. Now, for those of you that are not getting paid, I feel like it's okay to recycle content. If you're not getting paid, I'm recycling content.
Hey, this is William Tincup, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Practitioner Corner podcast. It's a wonderful podcast about the journey, the paths of how practitioners, both HR and TA, kind of go from high school, college, all the way to where they are right now. Some of the things that they've learned, how they've been successful, people that thrive around them, etc. It's a fun podcast. You'll love it. You'll learn from it. Subscribe to it. Thanks.
Welcome to The Human Role, your go-to podcast where HR and payroll collide with innovation. I'm your host, Tiana Neal, and every month I'm diving deep with industry experts and change makers, bringing you real talk insights, practical tips, and fresh takes you won't hear anywhere else. Whether you're a leader, practitioner, or just curious about the latest HR and payroll trends, I've got you covered. Ready to roll with the best? Tune in for fresh perspectives, actionable tips, and the knowledge you need to roll forward with confidence. Subscribe now and let's transform the way you work.
Yes. So I think that kind of leads to the next topic, which is actually what you're presenting on. And, and what I tell folks is when you're thinking about your fee, think about the time it actually will take you to prepare the talk or the discussion or whatever it might be. And, we talked about panels that you have to prepare answers to questions, things like that. But if you're going up and doing a speech or you're speaking and, I always kind of joke around that it's actually the shorter sessions that are harder to prepare for than the ones that you have an hour plus, because those you can fit a lot into, but the 15-minute ones, those you have tough to move quickly and you have to, it takes a lot to actually thin it down to that real quick hit that's going to make an impact. So, but that being said, that needs to be part of when you think about the dollar amount of what you want to charge, taking the what will it take me to prepare and determining what your hourly rate is. And I've seen any numbers between, a couple $100 an hour to a lot of bucks an hour in the, thousands. And I think figure out what that, what makes sense. And that will be dependent on the conference organizers, how much they're charging, the things that you already kind of mentioned around, what is their notoriety, how many people are going to be there, what are they charging, all those things. Because I also will do stuff that's, discounted for nonprofits and for groups that are more local versus national or international. So I think there's some things there to take into consideration. But I also would say, like, it's not just you walk on stage and you go. Now, yes, even if you're recycling stuff,
you have to prepare.
There is a bit of customization that
Absolutely.
you're doing, even if it's just like cleaning up your slides and making sure, okay, wait, is this the message I said I'm going to deliver on?
Well, but it's yes. That's why now let me go to say there are people that we know. There are people that you and I, Katie, have been at conference that we've seen the same presentation for 4 years in a row. 4 years. There is a very worldwide famous, much loved speaker. I could stand up and do her shit right now from beginning to end. It will be carbon copied. And I know she's a bazillionaire. I know she's a bazillionaire, but she worked up the rank where people expect what that presentation is. And so that's
now
why
I want to know who you're talking about, because I was thinking of because I was thinking of a gentleman.
Oh no, different, but yes. No, this is mega. But there's some people, it's like a concert, right? Mm-hmm. Like when I went to see Prince, I saw Prince in concert like 6 times. I was always screaming 1999, like I wanted to see it, right?
I want
there
that
are
song
some
again.
people when they're like, tell that story about or do that thing that you do with but it takes a long time to get there. I think something else that you said that I want to kind of go back to, though, is when you're talking about preparing and what it takes to have a presentation, if you're considering going into the speaking circuit or you're trying to make that pivot, understand I always have the if not but for rule of what goes into what I'm charging for. Like, I would be at the pool today if not but for this conference that I'm working on. Like, those things come into play. But then there's some that are positive. It's not all negative. Like, I wouldn't be at the Arizona whatever resort if not for this conference that I also get to see, my best friend Katie. So I might do a conference that I wouldn't necessarily do if there's something else that I'm partnering with that organization. There's I've taken some opportunities to speak at places where I wouldn't necessarily consider, except for the other people that are speaking, the topics, their headliner, and the time that it's going to take. But when I did my keynote, like, I worked on that sucker for 3 months and practiced and cried and scraped and researched. I mean,
I may have been there for some of that.
You might have been there for a lot of that. In fact, this is my new famous quote. I share it with everyone. I'm only accepting kudos and attaboys. I am not at this point accepting any criticism. Katie, what do you think? It's great. Thank you.
Everything's
and
great.
Good night.
Perfect. Yeah.
I'm going to bed. The next time you see me, I will be on stage.
Well, and I think, and actually, this is a really good point, because I think there's also we're in a virtual remote world a little bit right now. And so I think some folks that have started to build up this notoriety in virtual stages, it is a very different situation. And I actually think it might be harder to do it remotely versus in person, but that's me, because I don't really get stage fright per se. Like, I get that nerves right before I go on stage, more of like, don't trip as you're walking across the stage kind of thing, but not I have to, think of everyone being in their underwear or anything like that's just not who I am. But I will say that doing it virtually, it's hard because you're not getting a lot of times you don't even see the folks on the call. So you have no like verbal cues or anything that you can read the audience to say, is this resonating? Is this landing? That kind of thing. But that is also just something to keep in mind. And that also impacts pricing. If I have to go somewhere, either get on a plane, get in a car, whatever it might be, and actually be in attendance physically, is different from I have to call into a Zoom and present whatever the topic is. So that is another thing to take into consideration. But I agree with you. It's the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it. You need to take that into consideration, because there have been many times when it has been like the weekend before an event or the weekend before I have to turn in slides, like you're scrambling, and not because you're ill prepared, but more from I want to make sure this is really good. And that people can actually walk away from this and go, wow, I learned some stuff and I now know better about whatever the topic is. And I think those are the folks that also resonate. To your point, if it is someone that we know that does the same talk, as long as it's impactful to folks, and as long as it like, I'll tell you one that I love quite a bit is Brene Brown. And, and she has spoken at a couple conferences that we have gone to. And sometimes it does feel like some of the stories are recycled stories, but I also would say every single time I get something out of her coming to speak, because she has there's something that always hits you personally, I feel like. But then there are other folks that I'm like, we've heard this now for 4 years in a row, and it's not anything new or different. And so those are the ones that you're like, not so much.
I think we should tell people stuff. If you are not a speaker and you haven't done this, there's some things that you may not recognize or understand as an audience participant that is different, especially when you're talking about the virtual world. So one of the things is that if I had to do a 40-minute speech, previously I used to be able to do like 20 slides, and you have timing in the back. You can engage conversation. You can engage with the audience. You can get people, you can share an extra story based on what they laughed at or who was there. You also get to network with the people that are there and talk to them about different stories, or people who say, I'm really excited to see you talk. So you can kind of gear it towards that. And then once you're on stage, you have the presenter view, which most audience members don't know. Like, you're literally seeing your slides. You're literally can see your notes. You can see a timer. You have a person in the back. Someone's adjusting your audio. All of those things to make sure that it's a great value for you and that the speaker is energized. Flash forward at home, when they say you have to speak 20 minutes, you are on your own and you have to fill all of that content without interaction. Like, for me, I know 20 minutes is 1,500 words written for me to physically speak, right? And the other part of which is you would think would be the easiest thing, that is the most difficult, are pre-recorded. Because if you're in front of an audience and you sneeze and you cough and you laugh, people are just like, whatever. If you do it and it's pre-recorded, people expect it to be perfect and spot on without a lot of and ahs and why are you doing that? You could have recorded it. It took a long time before I was like, oh, I can just like make a mini movie instead of me just being a talking head at my virtual presentations. Sometimes if it's pre-recorded, but it takes a lot. It is more difficult because it's the way that it works there is it's a very tight schedule. You have to be 20 minutes is for real. There's some presentations, they will just cut you off. And anytime anytime that you're going over, you're taking away from the next speaker and for the whole feel of vibe of the whole thing. This isn't, oh, you're going to stay for the last speaker because there's happy hour right afterwards. These are people that are usually still working or they're at their desk and they're taking the time. And as soon as you sound like you don't know what you're talking about or you're and on, then they're shutting you off. And the event is losing viewers and people. Like I've been in ones where someone asked me to go, somebody panicked. There was a presenter who got fired like the day before they were supposed to speak. Had a full panic attack and were dying. And I got a call that was like, you have to go on. And it was like hours early. Had to go on because the person, had that and they were losing. They lost like 100 people in the first 5 minutes of this person going on. So 100 people is not just for that session. They may not log back on the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. They're going on the energy. And so that's tough. I think virtual has taught me a lot about my presentation skills, but also because I used to always say I don't do webinars because I hate them. And now we've spent like 2 years of pretty much webinar action.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the ability to present in such a way that's engaging without actually engaging has become such a different world. But I also think there's so many tools that you can use with the different technology that there's chat, there's questions, there's breakout rooms, there's different things that you can do with some of these different technologies that are being used by conference providers. And I think that's also the piece to keep in mind, is that the more you can get those questions and get the engagement from the audience. And so one of the things I like to do is open it up with a poll or a question to get people clicking right away. And I know you and I have talked about that as well. Like, get people engaged right in the first minute, 2 minutes, whatever it might be, because then they're like, oh, you're going to talk about that thing that you just asked a question about, or whatever it might be. And I'm going to get the answer to this question right up front. And so I think that's really helpful. Breakout rooms, anytime you can get them engaged. But I would also say be thoughtful about breakout rooms, because you'll have folks that will log off if they have to go to a breakout room because they don't want to have the conversation. They don't want to engage in that way, because to your point, they're sitting at their desk, they're at work, whatever it might be. And just knowing that and kind of being aware of that. But so that being said, all of those things kind of about the preparation. And then I want to shift this slightly. So, we're talking about speaking engagements and panels and things like that. But I think this also converts into just doing work, whether that's providing a training or a workshop, those kind of things. Because I think this is where some consultants and some folks who are being asked to share their expertise or whatever it means. It's like, how do you quantify that? How do you quantify that expertise? And the way that I look at it, and this is actually some feedback, and I got this feedback recently. I do try to go off like, how long hours wise is it going to take me to prepare for the thing? Whether it's, hey, I have to do a training for, 10 trainings on the same topic for a group of employees. Obviously all the preparation, all the time you're actually physically doing the workshop, whatever it might be, and probably an hour before and after that, just because you are going to be focused for an hour ahead and after. But then I think the other piece to take into consideration is the follow-up and what might come out of questions that folks have, or things that might come up that the HR team or whoever it is that's asking you to do this work, what they might need from you after. Because I also like to do like a one-pager just to say, here's what we covered. Here's some resources if you want to learn more, things along those lines. Because I think that's really helpful for folks too, is what else, hey, that topic really resonated with me. Where can I learn more? How can I learn more? Things like that. And taking all of that time into consideration of what it takes you to get there, and how you actually prepare for that. And then there's other things. And this is, I think, one that we've all heard is like, what's a topic that you could speak about for 30 minutes without preparing in any way, shape, or form? I'm sure at this point in your career, and I can say at this point in my career, there are probably 10 topics that I could go and speak on and not have any problem preparing for, that I could go live today, right now, this minute. That being said, I want to also be thoughtful about, am I truly am I serving the folks that are listening? So being thoughtful about that as well. But I think when we talk about those workshops, all of those things, negotiating and thinking about that. And I actually was just told recently by a prospective client, Katie, you know what? Because they were looking at multiple bids, the bids that we've gotten from everyone else were about triple what you submitted to us. And that was like a good, wake up call for me of, wow, okay, I'm not doing what I need to do because I'm undervaluing my expertise, and I'm undervaluing what I actually can provide to these teams, and checking myself on that. It was I was really appreciative that my client was willing to share that, because it was like, oh, okay, I need to do better at pricing. And I need to be thinking about this in terms of what are other people charging, et cetera.
I want to bring that up when you're talking about charging, because I think people think that you're just charging for your speaking, and there's things that you may not put into your contract. And, we always have the joke like, oh, they asked for green M&Ms, or they asked for blah, 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 blah.
What's on your rider?
I get it now. There's something that I put in that is on my rider is I have to fly out of Waco. I have to fly out of Waco because the Waco airport, I don't pay for parking. It's 15 minutes away from my house. Going to Dallas, it takes me 2 hours. Parking is $25 a day on site. And so it ends up being better for all of us. And I don't want to park at some rando place, because of safety concerns. I have done it in the past, but I realized I didn't want to do that. The other thing that I started doing, I for some reason, maybe it's just my own personal anxiety, I seem to have a hard time of selecting where to stay. And because I'm always like, people say, well, just tell us where you're staying. And you're like, should I stay at this one? Is this one too much money? Or should I stay at that place? Is this going to be able to accommodate me? And I realized there was something that was consistent that I needed, me personally. I needed somebody else to do that for me. That should not, because it takes me hours. That's my own neuroses. So it's like, can you help me pick a hotel room? And also requiring that the hotel that I stay at has food at it. Not because I'm trying to be a diva, but I'm trying to give my best to whoever I'm speaking for. And I need to be able to grab a cup of coffee. I don't want to be in a position where I show up. I've done this tons of times, showed up hungry and they only have coffee. That's bad. When I'm doing an 8 o'clock or 4-hour workshop starting at 8 o'clock, they don't have food prepared and they do it for the guests. You don't want to sit there and eat in breaks and with the people that you're speaking to. And all I've had was coffee. That was a bad day. So I needed to be able to be able to grab something to eat of sustenance. And also when I'm done, I need to get out of there and I just want to go back and take a shower and eat something in the hotel room and go to sleep. I promise you, I'm not trying to, be diva out, but it's helpful so that I can focus and not worry about what am I going to eat? Where am I going to go? How am I going to handle it? I can just focus on the content.
I'm so glad you just said that, because that is one of the things that I do every time I'm going to a client site or anything is I ask whoever the admin is that is, you usually have a point of contact at the office and they know their stuff to be able to say, where should I stay that's close to the site? And to your point, that has food, that has some of these things, because I've been in the same position. And it's especially great when you're like in a foreign country and you can't leave the hotel because you're not super comfortable with leaving the hotel as a, single woman, walking out at night. You're like, no, I need food in the hotel. So that's just another consideration. So I'm glad you pointed that one out because that's another good one. But yes, asking the admin or whoever the office manager, whatever it might be, that's a critical piece too. So yes, thank you for calling it out.
I know, full. And the other thing I asked them to provide is a dongle, not because I don't have one. It is because
what's a dongle, Jackye?
A dongle is a thing for a Mac. So I use a MacBook Pro. Most of the projectors that you see, you cannot count on them to have. That's right. That's a dongle. It's a weird name, but you cannot count on everyone to have the equipment that I need. So I factor that into the contract, that they have a dongle, that they have the room layout. I tell them how many pens. I tell them, how close the seats need to be, if there needs to be walking space because we're doing an activity. Because I've also been at a site where I got there and had to reorganize the whole room because I needed it classroom style and they put everybody in a circle and it's not going to work for the activities that we're going to have or whatever. And that's a workshop, which is different than a speaking engagement. And I literally asked them to provide the dongle literally because I've forgotten it so many times.
Well, and I think what you're saying there, and it's something that I've done, is actually just prepare like a checklist to
it's
send
on my
to
contract
them.
now. It's just fully how I need it.
Yes. And I think that's critical because I think, like, for me, I always like to have rounds, people sitting in rounds, because I do a lot of team activities at the table. And so I'd like the tables to be set up in rounds. And to your point, I can't tell you how many times I've had to be moving chairs an hour before an event that you're like, oh my God, so I should be focusing on my slides and on my whatever. And instead I'm moving chairs around and trying to find pens.
That's right. So, and P.S. I start classroom style because people always sit next to somebody else and then I make them put them into a circle just because they're not going to be sitting next to the same people. It's like, but these are things, that's the other part. So this is why what you're paying for when you're talking about expertise. Because when you talk to someone and say, hey, can you speak at this event? And they say, sure. And then they show up and they say, do you have any bottled water? And they're like, no, there's a water fountain in the hallway. That's not going to help you. And the person can't speak. And you may not know that about yourself. Like, I know I get pasty when I talk. I get nervous and I become a mouth breather in public. So like, this is like way oversharing. Do I have to pay a copay today? Y'all are getting to know all my secrets that I usually don't tell anyone. But those are things that I know about myself because I've done this so many times. I also
Mine
know
are Kleenex, cough drops, water. Those are the three things that I must have. And it's not, I don't even ask the clients for the Kleenex or the cough drops. Those are just things I have in my backpack at all times because I have to, because it's the worst thing to get on stage and your nose starts running, or you start to like get a tickle in your throat and you're like, oh, and then you like panic and then it gets worse. And the water thing, I don't know if it's because I'm an Arizona person, but there always has to be water, or I like it. And it can be, it's the most like mental thing. It's not even like, oh, I'm thirsty. It's I just need to have water, period.
And then the other part that's really funny that it takes time for you to learn is the level of the size of the group and how it affects you in a physiological way. So I used to say, have water. And this is why I forgive all the people for the green M&Ms, right? Because you understand what they're really asking for. It sounds like you're being a diva when I say, no, I need bottled water, because I used to get nervous. And when I would pick up the water, I would shake. And they would give you a glass of water with ice in it. And everybody knew you were nervous because you would shake, and everybody could see that I'm shaking when I picked up the glass of water, and the
I
glass
won't
of
make
water
any
sweats.
reference to our former president on that one. I'll let that one go.
And the glass of ice water is, yeah, right. You're right. No, that's not why he was shaking. Maybe he was. Yeah, that's right. Because you start shaking, it has ice in it. Everybody can see it, and it's wet. So if you're shaking and you have ice water, you could drop the glass because that's what they have at hotel setups. So I always ask for bottled water, and I need it to be. And this is funny. The fancier you go, when they bring you the water, they'll freaking open the water for you. And then you don't know which water was yours because there's 2 waters underneath. Both of them are open. They're not really sure if anybody drank out of them. Like, so it's like, I need mine unopened. I do not want you to open it for me. Thank you. And I need to have my own bottle of water. Now, but
Jackye, can I just talk to that one thing? I have seen so many times when I've been on a panel where they'll have water out for the speakers, where like a water bottle will get left for the next panel, and then someone will pick it up and drink, and you're like, oh my God. So yes, all day on that one, because I'm like, yeah, yucky.
And that's the thing, you don't know. Some people are like, oh, I'm an expert speaker, and they don't know that, you know, when you have to have these things and ask these questions. How about when you thought you were going to be really cute, right, and wear your best heels, and you didn't know that they had,
that you're gonna have to walk 4 miles ahead of time.
That you were going to have to walk 4 miles to do your presentation, and that they had those slats, those metal slats. So every time you walk, when you talk, clunk, 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 clunk. And it's like, Lord have mercy. What are you going to do? Like, so you sound like a diva to say, I need to know what kind of platform that the stage is on. I'm not trying to be a diva. I just know if I should wear my Keds. I went to a presentation the other day, and a gentleman was wearing sneakers, and he was the only gentleman wearing sneakers. And the reason that we knew is because he kept squeaking every time he walked. He was just squeaking. And so you knew, right? Now, generally you wouldn't want to know, but it's like, if that was something that is important, these are the things that you understand, so that, because you don't want a distraction. And what you need to know as an organizer of these events is that I'm telling you these things because at the end, when you get your feedback, these are the things that come up that you don't even know how to respond. Like, I couldn't focus on the presentation because she was sniffing so bad.
Yes.
And they'll say her presentation was horrible. Do not ask her back. They didn't even pay attention to the content. They were too distracted because there's so many conferences. You and I just
had that happen where we were listening to something and someone was sniffling the whole time, and it was like, I'm sure what she's saying is great.
I couldn't watch it.
I can't watch it. Yeah. And so I think those are the things, like, so that's just from that was just to define for you that Jackye and I are divas.
And
FYI.
Neurotic.
And slightly neurotic and have issues. And I don't know what is that? There is a diagnosis for when like noises annoy you.
Yeah. Yes.
We have that thing, whatever that is.
We have that thing.
Jackye. So last word on this one. What is one thing, you know, if you are looking to get into the training space or the speaking space, what's one thing from this episode you just want to reiterate?
I think one of the things that I would reiterate before you go on a national or international stage, practice locally. Maybe you join a Toastmasters. I'm not a member. I'm not getting a kickback. They are not a sponsor. However, join a Toastmasters, practice among your friends and local groups so that you can get recommendations, and then be very specific on what your expectations are from the organization and what you're willing to provide when you offer yourself in your services, so that you can help remember sometimes why that, what do you call it? The crisis, imposter syndrome, so that you don't get imposter syndrome, and you can give yourself a friendly reminder of the value that you're offering the organization, and remind yourself that you are worth it because of the content that you're providing.
Awesome.
Is that like 13 things? You always say one thing and I always say 13.
No, I know. No, I think that was good. The one that I would say is I always write out whatever my little blurb is that I have for the conference or for the speaking engagement or whatever it is. Like, Katie's going to talk about X, Y, and Z, about DEI. And then whatever those objectives are of like, what is the listener going to get from the conversation? I have that as my first slide while I'm preparing the slides, which
Mhm.
might sound bananas. I don't know, but it's a good North Star for me as I'm putting together slides, as I'm pulling together content to make sure that I'm always thinking about what is the listener getting from this? And am I giving them the bang for their buck that I have promised I'm going to do? That's one thing. And then the second thing is those little things that and I know we were kind of joking around about them, the Kleenex, the cough drops, the shoes, all of those things, which seem like such like kind of silly, frivolous things. They matter so much.
That's right.
And they could make or break your talk.
Your whole
and
presentation.
quite honest, yeah. And those little things you'll start to recognize. But the last piece is make sure you're speaking out about something that you're actually an expert or have experience with. And like, do not go and say, I'm going to be an expert on this thing, unless you actually have that expertise and you've taken the time to really understand it and learn it, because people will spot a non-expert very quickly, and that can absolutely derail you for future situations.
They will call you out before you get off the stage.
Absolutely. And they will ask you questions, and if you can't answer them, you will look a fool. That is all. Do not look a fool.
Don't be boo-boo the fool. That should be
the title of this episode. Don't be a fool.
Yeah. No, you got to say
kidding.
boo-boo the fool. That's very
Boo-boo the
specific.
fool.
That's right.
But last but not least, get paid. Figure out what your hourly rate is and determine how much time, energy. And then also the other piece, and I think I've talked about this in regards to contracts, is ask them what their budget is. You'll be shocked by that number a lot of times, that it's much higher than what you estimate that you're going to charge them for. So ask what their budget is before you go further.
Boom.
All right, my friend. Thank you for listening, everyone. This is the Inclusive AF podcast. My name is Katee Van Horn.
And I'm Jackye Clayton.
The end. Bye.
I like it.